He should never have said it. The words slipped out of my mouth before my brain could stop them. Marry me. The conference room went silent so fast it felt like the air had been sucked out of the building. I had meant it as a joke. A stupid, exhausted joke from a man who had been staring at spreadsheets for 12 straight hours. My boss, Vivian Cross, was standing at the head of the table in a sharp black suit, explaining another impossible deadline like it was just another Tuesday. So I laughed and said it. Honestly, Miss Cross, at this point I might as well marry you. I already spend more time with your financial reports than I do with my own life. A few people chuckled nervously, but Vivian didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. She just looked at me with those calm gray eyes that had made billion-dollar investors nervous and said something that made my stomach drop straight to the floor. You shouldn't joke about promises you might actually have to keep. The room went completely still. I remember thinking one very clear thought. Oh no, because Vivian Cross never said anything without meaning it. And the way she was looking at me made it feel like that joke had just opened a door neither of us could close. So the question wasn't whether I'd embarrassed myself. The question was why the most powerful woman in the city suddenly sounded like she was considering it. And I had no idea yet that my stupid joke was about to turn into the most dangerous decision of my life. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 34 years old. I'm a forensic accountant. And for the last 6 months, I had been working as an outside consultant for Cross Industries, one of the biggest tech logistics companies on the West Coast. My job was simple. Follow the money. Find problems before they exploded. Then, quietly disappear before anyone remembered my name. That worked for me. Because when you're a single father raising a 7-year-old girl, quiet is a gift. Drama is expensive. And mistakes have consequences that last a lifetime. The meeting ended 10 minutes after my accidental proposal. Nobody mentioned it again. Nobody even looked at me. But as people filed out of the conference room, Vivian paused beside my chair. Mr. Cole. Her voice was calm, controlled. Exactly the same tone she used when negotiating million-dollar acquisitions. Yes, Miss Cross? She studied me for a second like I was a puzzle she hadn't decided whether to solve or ignore. Then she said something even stranger. Do you have plans tomorrow evening? My brain was still stuck on the word marry. Not really. Good. She picked up her tablet. Come to my house tomorrow at 7. I blinked. I'm sorry, your house? Yes. She turned toward the door. Oh, and Ethan? That was the first time she had ever called me by my first name. Bring your daughter! Then she walked out, just like that. No explanation, no context. Just an invitation from a billionaire CEO to a man who still drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door. I sat there for a full minute before one thought finally surfaced. What the hell just happened? The next evening, I was frosting a birthday cake, pink icing, extra strawberries, and slightly crooked letters that spelled, Happy birthday, Daddy. Mia stood on a chair next to the counter, supervising like a tiny general. More sprinkles. There are already a lot of sprinkles. More. I sighed and poured another handful over the cake. Your dentist is going to send me angry letters. Mia grinned. Worth it. 7 years old. Messy brown ponytail, gap in her front teeth. And the single best thing that had ever happened to me. 2 years ago, my ex-wife decided motherhood wasn't really her thing. She moved to Portland, left Mia with me, and disappeared into a life that didn't include parent-teacher conferences or bedtime stories. So yeah, quiet life, simple life. That was the plan. Then my phone buzzed. Vivian Cross. Just the name on the screen made my shoulders tighten. Mia noticed immediately. Work? Yeah. Are they making you stay late again? Her voice had that careful tone kids use when they're trying not to sound disappointed. Nope. I picked up the phone. Text message. Vivian Cross. Still coming tonight? I stared at it for a second. Right. The invitation. Hey, Bug, I said slowly. Remember the boss I told you about? The rich one? That's the one. She mean? I laughed. No. Actually, that wasn't true. Vivian Cross had a reputation. Brilliant, cold, untouchable. But mean wasn't the right word. She was precise, like a surgeon or a chess player. Why? Mia tilted her head. Because if she's mean, we shouldn't go to her house. Why not? Because you joked about marrying her yesterday. I froze. You heard that? You said it on speaker. Right. I rubbed my face. Yeah, about that. Are you going to marry her? No. Okay. Mia shrugged. Then we can go. Kids have a way of simplifying the world that adults completely lose. An hour later, we pulled into the longest driveway I'd ever seen. The house wasn't just big, it was ridiculous. Glass walls, stone terraces, lights reflecting off the lake behind it like something out of a movie. Mia pressed her face against the window. Dad. Yeah? Your boss lives in a castle. Apparently. Quote. Before I could even knock, the door opened. Vivian Cross stood there in dark jeans and a soft gray sweater. Not the armor she wore at work. Her hair was down, her expression almost human. You made it. Her eyes dropped to Mia. And you must be the famous daughter. Mia crossed her arms thoughtfully. Are you his boss? Yes. Do you yell at him? Vivian blinked, then laughed, a real laugh. No. Good. Good. Mia nodded seriously. Because he's trying really hard. For a second, something flickered across Vivian's face, something soft. Come in, she said quietly. Dinner was strange, but not in a bad way, just unexpected. The backyard had a small table set under warm lights. No staff, no formal dinner, just pizza, cake, and Mia explaining in great detail why dinosaurs would definitely beat unicorns in a fight. Vivian listened. Really listened. Like it was the most important conversation she'd had all week. By the time Mia fell asleep on the patio chair, wrapped in a blanket, the night had grown quiet. The lake looked like glass. Vivian poured 2 glasses of wine. Then she sat across from me, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked nervous. Ethan, she said quietly, I need to ask you something serious. My stomach tightened. What kind of serious? She stared down at the wine glass for a long moment. Then she said the words that changed everything. Have you ever heard of a marriage clause? I frowned. No. My grandfather wrote one into the Cross Industries Trust 60 years ago. She finally looked up. If I'm not married by midnight tomorrow, I lose control of the company. The world tilted. How old are you tomorrow? 38. Silence filled the space between us. Then she said the sentence that made my chest feel tight. So I need a husband. And she was looking straight at me. I didn't answer her right away. Because when the most powerful woman you've ever met looks at you across a table and says she needs a husband, your brain doesn't exactly know what to do with that information. The lake was quiet behind her. The lights from the house reflected in the water. And my daughter was asleep 10 feet away in a chair, clutching the stuffed rabbit she carried everywhere. I looked at Vivian, then at Mia, then back at Vivian. You can't be serious. I am. Her voice didn't shake, but there was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Fear, real fear. Explain, I said. She leaned back slowly. My grandfather created the company trust in 1965, she began. Back then, he believed something very simple. What? That a company should never be controlled by someone who has no family. That's insane. I agree. She gave a small, tired smile. But the clause is airtight. If the primary heir reaches 38 unmarried, the board takes control. And tomorrow is your birthday. Yes. My brain started doing math. You've known about this for years. I thought I had time. Why not just marry someone? That question made her laugh softly, not amused. Just bitter. You think men don't know who I am? Fair. Every relationship I've ever had turned into a negotiation, she said. Someone wanted influence, shares, access. She shook her head. I stopped dating years ago. And now, a venture investor named Marcus Holloway has spent 18 months quietly buying influence on my board. That sounds bad. It is. Her voice went flat. If I lose control tomorrow night, he dismantles the company within 6 months. I stared at her. How many employees? 8,000. My stomach turned. And you think marrying me fixes that? Yes. You barely know me. Exactly. That answer surprised me. You're not part of the board. You don't want my money. You don't want my influence. She leaned forward slightly. You want to go home to your daughter and live a quiet life. That's the plan. You're the only person in my orbit who doesn't want anything from me. I rubbed my face slowly. This is insane. I know. You're asking me to marry my boss. For now. For now? We file the marriage license tomorrow morning, she said calmly. The clause is satisfied. The board loses their leverage. And then, quote, in 18 months we quietly divorce. She said it like she was explaining a business contract, which I guess she was. What do I get? I asked carefully. Her expression tightened slightly. Compensation. How much compensation? $500,000 upon dissolution. My heart skipped. That kind of money could change everything. College for Mia. Medical bills. The little house I'd been trying to save for. But money wasn't the real problem. My daughter, I said. Vivian's voice softened immediately. She comes first. She always comes first. I understand. No media circus around her. Agreed. No dragging her into corporate war. Agreed. And if at any point this puts her at risk. We ended. Silence stretched between us. Then she said something unexpected. I'll also remove you from my reporting structure tomorrow. What? You won't technically be my employee anymore. Caroline, my lawyer, will place you under independent contract through legal. I blinked. You already planned that. I planned everything. Quote. Of course she had. That's how people like Vivian Cross survived. I looked at Mia again. Still asleep, still safe, still small. You're asking me to gamble my entire life on you. She nodded. Yes. Why me? She didn't hesitate. Because you're the kind of man who jokes about marriage in a room full of executives just to break the tension. That was a mistake. No, she said quietly. That was honesty. The night felt suddenly heavier. You said tomorrow, I said. Yes. What time? Courthouse opens at 9. That's not a lot of time. I know. And if I say no? Her expression didn't change. Then, tomorrow night I lose everything. There was no drama in her voice. Just truth. I exhaled slowly. I need to think. Take the night. She stood as I lifted Mia carefully into my arms. Her little head rested on my shoulder. As I carried her toward the door, Vivian walked with us. At the driveway I turned back. She was standing under the porch light. Alone. Smaller somehow than the woman who commanded boardrooms. Why did you invite Mia tonight? I asked suddenly. Vivian looked surprised. Then she answered quietly. Because I needed to see the most important part of your life before I asked you to change it. That answer stayed with me all the way home. I didn't sleep. At 3 in the morning, I was still sitting at the kitchen table staring at my phone. Mia's drawing hung on the fridge. Stick figures. One big. One small. Holding hands. Underneath it, she'd written in crooked letters. Dad plus M.E. equals family. $500,000. A fake marriage. A billionaire CEO fighting for survival. And a little girl upstairs who trusted me to make the right decisions. At 4:02 a.m. I finally picked up my phone. Text message. Ethan. If we do this, we do it my way. The reply came almost instantly. Vivian Cross. Name your terms, Ethan. Full legal protection. Mia stays out of everything. And complete honesty between us. 3 dots appeared. Then, Vivian Cross. Deal. Another message followed. Vivian Cross. Courthouse. 9 a.m. I stared at the screen. Then typed one last thing. Ethan. You still owe me a birthday cake. The typing bubble appeared again. Vivian Cross. If we survive this, I'll buy you the best cake in Seattle. I locked my phone, looked at the clock, and realized something terrifying. In less than 5 hours, I was getting married. The courthouse smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. Not exactly the place you imagine when you think about getting married. At 8:57 a.m., I was standing in the hallway, holding Mia's hand, while she swung our arms back and forth like we were waiting for a roller coaster. Daddy. Yeah? Are we in trouble? No. Then why are we at a courthouse? I hesitated. Because how exactly do you explain to a 7-year-old that you're about to marry your billionaire boss to save a company? Work thing, I said. That's boring. Most work things are. She nodded like that confirmed her entire worldview. Across the hall, Vivian Cross stepped out of a private office with her lawyer. Even in a simple cream dress, she looked like the most powerful person in the building. Her lawyer, Caroline Torres, carried a stack of documents thick enough to stop a bullet. Caroline noticed Mia first. Ah, she said, you must be Mia. Mia studied her seriously. Are you also rich? Caroline blinked. Moderately. Okay. Satisfied, Mia returned to examining the courthouse ceiling. Caroline handed me the documents. Prenuptial agreement. I flipped through the pages. The legal language was airtight. Every asset protected. Every risk accounted for. $500,000 after 18 months. Health insurance. A trust fund for Mia. $100,000 waiting for her when she turned 18. I stopped reading. You didn't have to do that. Vivian's voice was quiet. Yes, I did. I signed. The ceremony took 12 minutes. No flowers, no music. Just a tired judge and a couple of strangers signing paperwork. Do you, Vivian Marie Cross, take Ethan James Cole to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Her voice was calm, steady, like she was approving a merger. The judge looked at me. Do you, Ethan James Cole? I glanced at Vivian, the woman who had asked me to gamble everything on a plan that might destroy both our lives. Take Vivian Marie Cross to be your lawfully wedded wife? I swallowed. I do. The judge smiled politely. Congratulations. Then she stamped the certificate. Just like that, I was married. The explosion happened 30 seconds later. The courthouse doors opened, and the outside world went insane. Cameras, reporters, flashing lights. Ms. Cross! Is it true you married an employee? Ethan! How long have you two been dating? Is this related to the trust clause rumors? Vivian's security team appeared out of nowhere. Caroline grabbed my arm. Move! I lifted Mia and covered her face against my shoulder as we pushed through the crowd. Questions flew at us like bullets. How long have you known each other? Quote, is this a financial arrangement? Did the board approve this marriage? Vivian didn't say a word. Not until we reached the car. The doors slammed. Silence filled the vehicle like oxygen returning after drowning. Mia looked up at me. Daddy? Yeah? Quote, did you just marry your boss? I hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. She thought about that. Does that mean she's my mom now? Vivian turned in the front seat. Her voice was gentle. No, sweetheart. Then what are you? Vivian smiled softly. A friend who's going to be around for a while. Mia considered that. Okay. Then she asked the most important question of her life. Can we get ice cream? I laughed. Yeah. We can get ice cream. Living in Vivian's house felt like stepping into someone else's life. Everything was clean. Perfect. Quiet. Too quiet. Mia's new room looked like something out of a princess movie. Canopy bed. Bookshelves. A small desk already filled with coloring supplies. She's going to love this, I said. Vivian watched Mia explore the room. I hope so. Her voice carried a strange tension. Like she wasn't sure she deserved to see someone happy in her house. Later that night, Mia fell asleep surrounded by stuffed animals. Vivian and I sat across from each other in the living room. "We need rules," I said. "Agreed." Quote, "No fake romance inside the house." "Good. Mia's routine stays the same." "Of course. No secrets." She paused, then nodded. "No secrets." We shook hands, like two people signing a treaty. The news broke within hours. CEO Vivian Cross marries employee. Secret wedding rocks Cross Industries. Power move or real romance? My phone exploded. Friends, former coworkers, my ex-wife. Everyone suddenly cared about my life. I ignored all of them, except one message. Unknown number. I opened it. Rachel, my ex-wife. "Rachel, did you really marry a billionaire?" I stared at the message, then locked the phone. Some problems could wait. 3 days later, I discovered the first real problem. I was reviewing financial records from Cross Industries. My actual job. Numbers. Transactions. Patterns. Then something felt wrong. Vendor payments. Small ones, but frequent. Always approved by the same division head. I leaned closer, ran the numbers again. Then again. My pulse quickened. "Vivian," I called. She walked into the kitchen. "What is it?" Quote. I turned the laptop toward her. "Someone is stealing from your company." Her eyes sharpened instantly. "How much?" Quote. $2.3 million. Her face went still. "Who?" "Your VP of Operations." "David Brennan?" "That's the name on the approvals." She stared at the screen. "David has been with the company 12 years. Then he's been stealing for 6 months. Vivian paced slowly across the kitchen. "If the board finds out about internal fraud right now, they'll say you've lost control. Yes, and your friend Marcus Holloway wins." Silence stretched between us. Then she looked at me. "What do we do?" I closed the laptop. "We find proof. And then we burn the entire scheme to the ground." She studied me for a moment. "You just married into this mess." "Yeah." I leaned back in the chair. "Guess that makes it our mess." Something changed in her expression. Respect. Maybe trust. Maybe something else. "All right," Vivian said quietly. "Let's start digging." But neither of us knew yet. That uncovering $2 million in fraud was only the beginning, because somewhere inside Cross Industries, someone was already trying to destroy us. And the closer we got to the truth, the more dangerous this marriage was going to become. Marcus Holloway didn't threaten us. He smiled. That was the part that made my stomach twist. We were standing in the glass boardroom on the top floor of Cross Industries. 12 directors sat around the long table, lawyers on both sides. Financial reports spread across polished wood, and Marcus Holloway leaned back in his chair like a man watching a slow movie he had already seen. "Mrs. Cross," he said smoothly, "your sudden marriage has certainly complicated things." Vivian didn't react. Her posture stayed calm, controlled. Exactly the way she handled every high-stakes negotiation. "I'm glad you think so," she replied. Marcus tapped a pen against the table. "The trust clause is technically satisfied." Technically, that word carried poison. "But the board still has concerns," he continued, "particularly about stability." A director across the table nodded. "Your husband is a consultant with no corporate leadership background." I kept my hands folded, didn't react, didn't speak. Because the moment I talked, the conversation would turn into a spectacle. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "And then there's the fraud investigation." That word rippled across the room. Vivian's voice stayed steady. "Yes." Marcus spread his hands. $2 million missing from your operations division. That doesn't inspire confidence." He looked at me. "Unless, of course, your new husband can explain how he discovered it so quickly." There it was. The trap. Paint the marriage as a stunt. Paint me as a pawn. Then, convinced the board Vivian had lost control, I slowly slid a folder across the table. "Actually," I said calmly, "I can explain." Marcus's smile didn't move, but his eyes sharpened. Inside the folder were bank transfers, vendor contracts, emails, every piece of evidence we had spent the last 2 weeks gathering. But the final page made the room go silent. Marcus picked it up. For the first time, his smile faded. "You forged this." Quote. "No," I said. "That's your signature." Because the fraud trail didn't stop at David Brennan. It led somewhere much higher, Marcus Holloway. For months, he had been draining money through shell vendors, quietly weakening Cross Industries before forcing the board takeover. The plan had been elegant. Until Vivian got married. Until someone started following the money. The board members were already flipping through the documents, murmuring, angry, confused. Marcus set the papers down slowly. "You expect them to believe this?" Quote. I leaned forward. "No." I pointed to the glass wall behind him. "But the FBI will." Every head in the room turned. 2 agents were walking through the hallway outside. Marcus went completely still. Vivian's voice was ice. "You shouldn't steal from the company you're trying to control." The doors opened. Marcus Holloway? He didn't resist. He didn't argue. But as the agents escorted him out, he looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked afraid. The board meeting ended an hour later. Vivian Cross remained CEO. Full control restored. The news hit every business channel in the country. Corporate sabotage attempt foiled. CEO Vivian Cross retains control. But none of that mattered to me. Because when I got home that night, Mia was sitting on the couch with a piece of paper and a box of crayons. "Daddy!" "Hey, Bug." She ran over and hugged my legs. "Did you win your work fight?" "Yeah, good." She handed me the paper. It was another drawing. 3 stick figures this time. 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small. Above them, she had written something carefully in big, uneven letters. Family. I looked down at the drawing for a long moment. Then I looked up. Vivian was standing across the room, watching us. Quiet, unsure, like she was waiting for permission to exist inside that moment. "Come here," Mia said suddenly. Vivian blinked. "Me?" "Yes." Slowly, she walked over. Mia pointed at the drawing. "That's you." Vivian knelt beside her. "You drew me?" "Yeah." "Why?" Mia shrugged. "Because you stayed." The room went silent, because kids say the kind of truths adults spend years avoiding. Vivian looked at me, her voice soft. "The divorce papers are ready." "Right. 18 months. The contract, the plan, everything we agreed to." I looked at Mia, then at the drawing, then back at Vivian. "You remember that stupid joke I made? Marry me?" "Yeah." She smiled faintly. "Hard to forget." I took a slow breath. That was the dumbest thing I ever said. Vivian tilted her head slightly. "Why?" "Because I didn't know you yet." The room felt very quiet. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her eyes widened. "You're joking." "No." I opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, nothing flashy, just something real. Mia picked it. Vivian looked down at the ring, then at Mia. "You helped?" Mia nodded proudly. "I'm good at family stuff." I looked at Vivian. "This time it's not a contract." My voice was steady. No lawyers, no deadlines. Just truth. "I'm asking because I want to." For a second she didn't speak. Then her eyes filled with something I had never seen in Vivian Cross. "Hope, you're proposing to your wife." Quote. "Technically." She laughed softly, then she took the ring. "Yes." Mia clapped. "Best birthday ever." And in that moment I realized something simple. Some marriages begin with love. Ours began with survival. But the choice to stay, that's what made it real.